Hello everyone, it's Tracy from Cork and Brush Studio. I'm so happy to be the guest artist this month for Mixed Media Menagerie with the fabulous Laura, Nicole, and Erin. And this month's three elements, right up my alley: masking tape, tags, and leaves. I absolutely love the fall. It's my favorite time of the year. I live in upstate New York. I got married in the fall. Love it, love it, love it. So looking at the blank page here, I'm going to get started with these little pocket folders. Now, if you don't have these or can't find them, you can also cut off the top of an envelope or just tape on a pocket if you want to. I mean, masking tape is one of the elements, right? So I'm going to use this thick gel matte medium to glue these down because they will be a little bit tougher to stick down to the page than a regular thin piece of paper. You could also use Yes paste, but I'm going to use this gel medium a little later on as well, so I figured I would use it to glue these on. Okay, so now that these are in place where I want them, I'm going to reinforce with a little masking tape because I tend to use this masking tape as part of my background anyway. And I just want these to stay down. So I'm going to put a little reinforcement on both of them. This one is already popping up. Now I'm going to grab some ephemera from this fabulous package that Nicole sent me from a house of books. I love these music sheets. I'm also going to look through and grab any black and white images that have any leafy looking designs on them, and then I'm going to cut them down into smaller squares like this one, these ones here, and use those for my first layer. I'm going to use Liquitex Matte Medium to glue down my papers, and I always like to put a coating on the page first and then put the paper down and put a coating over the paper as well. Helps avoid the little corners popping up. I might use a credit card to smooth it out and get all the bubbles out so it's nice and flat, because we're going to be putting a lot of paint on top of this once everything is glued down. I'm going for a light to dark effect, so you'll notice that I'm going to put the lighter papers towards the top of the page, and then as it goes down I'll use those black and white images towards the bottom of the page, and so it gets gradually darker as you go down to the bottom of the page. Now I'm going to collage right over these little pockets, and just when I put something, like if I put a piece over like this, I'm just going to make sure that I really get into that groove and smooth it out really well so that it doesn't tear later on. And I'm going to try not to go over the openings in the pockets, but if I do, I'll use a little X-Acto knife later to open those back up. Now before I add some of those pattern papers towards the bottom, I'm going to put a little more masking tape, fill in some holes. I really like to use masking tape as part of my background. It gives nice texture. Looks pretty good to me. So now I'm going to grab a few other things, my gesso. So we're going to gesso the whole page. And now I'm also going to grab any leaf things I could find. I found some stamps. I found some leaf stamps. I also have grabbed my favorite leafy looking stencil. And I also have some actual leaves, real leaves that I collected from my yard. This one's got a little bit of paint on it. I've used it before and I'm going to show you how. So before I get to the leaves though, I want to apply a layer of gesso over my entire background. Now again, I'm going for light to dark, so I want the gesso to be a little heavier towards the top of the page and then get lighter towards the bottom. And you can do that, you can add a little bit of water. I just dipped in a little water there to kind of shear it out a little bit because I do want to see some of those words and little leafy images and stuff. I want to see those behind the gesso. Now I've zoomed out a little bit because I want to show you as I'm putting this thicker gesso around the bottom part of the page, I'm going to take some of my stamps, maybe even some of the leaves, and just stamp right into the gesso just to give that bottom layer a little bit of texture. Now that the gesso is completely dry, I'm going to get my first color down, and I'm going to use a Lindy spray. I really like this Lindy spray because it is a shimmer spray and it has like flecks of gold in it, and to me gold is fall. I don't know why. This is going to be a very fall spread. So, but you could use any spray ink, alcohol inks, maybe even coffee. Grab some water. I want to have it darker towards the bottom and definitely spray it over where I stamped those leaves into the gesso and lighter towards the top. I'll use the water to dilute it a little bit at the top and blot it away. So I just want to give you a closer look here so you can kind of see how that spray really brought out the pattern that we stamped into there. And now, once it's all dry, we're going to do the next layer with actual leaves. I collected these leaves from my yard and I tried to pick ones that had some good texture on the back sides of them. So this is what the page is looking like now after I press some of these leaves in here, and I'm so sorry I forgot to hit record on that first layer, so I'm just going to show you how I did it. I basically took the leaves, and I'm using a Dina Wakley paint set. It's actually Sedona, but I think this is such a fall orange, and I'm painting that on. Now, if you want, you can put a coat of clear gesso on your leaves first. It'll make them a little more durable, but I didn't really have to for these leaves. And then you just put a nice little thin coat of paint, not too much because you don't want it to smear, and you basically stamp it onto your page. There's the maple one that I used earlier, and you get a nice little second layer of color down. And here is a closer look at this layer. Doesn't have to be perfect, just getting some more color and pattern down. Now going to add a third layer of color with stencils. One of my favorite. This is a Stencil Girl stencil, of course, from Wendy Brightbill. It's called Bouquet Greenery. And this is another Dina Wakley color in that same set. It's also, I think it goes really well. Obviously, she put them together in a set, and it's so fall looking to me. And I'm just going to take my little makeup sponge here and randomly stencil in the same areas around the bottom, up the sides, and get my third color down. This is looking pretty good. Gonna get one more layer of color, taking one more from that Dina Wakley set. This is like a dark teal, and or aqua green, and I want to stick with a dark color. And I have another Stencil Girl stencil. This one by Ray Massigman was part of a set for their stencil club. If you don't know about that, you should definitely look it up. And we're just going to stencil a little bit more. All right, going to take a little break from the bottom and start to lighten up the top now. This color is actually called Buff, and you can use any off-white. I want to get some of this around the tops of the leaves, just so the transition isn't as harsh when I get some more white at the top. So I squeezed it right on the paper there, and I'm just putting a little bit of Buff just around the top of this little leafy garden I have growing on the bottom of my page. Okay, so now I've switched back to white, and I'm putting white up towards the top. I'm using gesso, but of course you can use titanium white. And I really want it to have some texture too. So I'm going to grab some bubble wrap, if I can find it, and I'm going to just press it into the top to give it a little bit of texture. And finally, to get it really, really, really white on the top, I'm going to add some fluid acrylic. I just put it in this fine liner across the top and attempt to get some drips. I'm not great at doing drips, I'll admit that right now, but I'm gonna just get a line right across the top, spray some water on it, and just let her flow. I will probably dab it. I don't want to cover up the leaves, but it's okay if some of it runs into the leaves. I kind of like the way it looks. So I'm happy with my drips and everything is all dry. So now just going to add some finishing touches. I love to use gel pens. If you've ever seen any of my work, I do a lot of drawing with gel pens on my mixed media pieces. And so I'm going to actually draw in my own botanicals here and there to create a little depth. I'm going to do it with white gel pen, then I'm going to add some black, and then I'm going to use a gold gel pen to outline some of the stenciled leaves. So I'm pretty happy with the way this is looking, but I think it needs one last thing, and I'm going to just add some splatters. I'm going to use a watercolor brush and just dip it into some acrylic ink. I have a brown, and then I'm going to use the fluid acrylic that I use for the drips to splatter some white as well, and it just kind of brings it all together. Now I'm sure at this point some of you are wondering, what about the tags? Did she forget the tags, the third element? No, didn't forget the tags. That's what the pockets are for. I actually made tags special to go inside these pockets, but the video would have been way too long, so I did a separate little mini tutorial. If you want to see how I made the tags, you can look that up on my YouTube channel, but I'm going to show you here in a minute the final page with the tags tucked into the pockets. And here's a closer look at the final journal page with the tags inserted. I want to thank Laura and Nicole and Erin for letting me be a part of Mixed Media Menagerie this month. If you'd like more information on me or to see more of my work, come say hello on Instagram @TracyVillart or visit corkandbrush.com. Bye!